American-made entrepreneur. Welcome to the show. Today we've got Roggen Frick with us. He's the owner of Bear Iron Works. He's what America's made for, right? Listen, a young entrepreneur with the spirit of just a great spirit. Roggen, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, when I got to meet you, you are palpable, right? Who you are, the story that you are, what it means to be an American entrepreneur, right? Digging it out, I want to dive into that. Folks, if you guys don't know, Roggen owns a great company. Maybe you can tell them about your company.
Yeah, so we have a little manufacturing business located in Grand Junction, Colorado. We make some products for the construction industry, primarily the civil construction industry. And there's some products that aren't commonly made and sold. They're very niche. And the main product that we make is called a Grizzly Rock Screen. It's a simple tool for contractors to be able to screen out their soil. And what started out as a side business, we've turned into a full manufacturing operation, and we've implemented some core values that I think are very important to not only our business, but a lot of businesses in general, to be able to drive some success there.
Well, I mean, so look, you started out, when you talk about, guys, when you see this, it's literally screens for excavators, for people that do site work, right? Being able to screen a material right there on site, right? And so you create this product. First of all, I want to go back. Where did you get the inspiration? What was the first one you did and why'd you do it?
So the first one I did, it wasn't my idea, it was my dad's idea. He's always been in the construction industry, and he's always had kind of kind of like a hustler mentality at times, where he would come up with little things to do on the side to just make some extra cash in the slow season. So he came up with the idea to make these rock screens. He would make a couple and send them to an auction. And then when I was in high school, I needed some money, so I made the very first one for myself back then in my ag class. And I didn't have equipment to move it, so I actually built it on a trailer. Um, and I took it and sold it to a friend of mine that I raced dirt bikes with. His dad wanted one, and so I just made it there, painted it on the trailer, and took it straight to him. And that was the first one we did. Then when I got into college, that's when I kind of started as a side business, because I wanted to have a garage to keep my dirt bike in. So this is all kind of been driven by my goal to have fun with my life and go have some great experiences, but I need to be able to support those experiences in some way.
Yeah, it's amazing. So literally, it's one of those things where there's a idea, right? Like idea,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, ideas that your dad has. Let's make a rock screen, right?
Yep.
And then growing the idea, right?
Hmm.
And then how do you live your life around? Look, you got to, walking through that chasm of ideas, right? So look, all you entrepreneurs are out there. Every one of us go through the same idea. You have an idea, right? Most great ideas. First of all, most great ideas die with us, right? Most people
Hmm.
don't have the it took us to go out there and really go and push through creating that first one, right? Just starting, right? Even if it's not perfect, that first one compared to the ones you build today, what's the difference in them?
The first one, it wasn't quite the proven design that we have. We had some good fundamental ideas that we had about how to make these strong and affordable for customers. Um, but it really kind of took multiple iterations of the product to really find those little tiny spots to where we could really improve the product, manufacture it faster, and make it stronger, and serve the purposes of the customer. And it's an ever continuing improving process.
Well, and I think that's the thing that people don't get is like the first one does not have to be perfect. Just start. Like
Yeah.
my first day at CDO Group, nobody here back then, 28 years ago, there was no such thing as an outsourced construction manager, right? And that's how we started we weren't GC yet. We were just an owner's rep, and we were inventing the business while we were going. So like
Hmm.
literally, we were building the plane while we're going. And I mean, the same thing for you guys, right? So you build that first one, you have it on the back. You literally welded it on your truck,
Yeah, on a trailer. Yep.
on a
That was
trailer.
parked outside the ag
Right.
classroom. Yeah.
No. Why? Because you didn't have here. There was a reason why you did that. Why?
Yeah, I didn't have heavy equipment, couldn't move it. So I had to build it on the trailer so I could move it and take it to the customer.
So look, I want people to get that. Like, if you want to start a podcast or you want to do an idea, like my first podcast was literally at my desk with a Zoom camera, and we did it on Zoom. And my buddy who did it, Dan Wiss, bless his heart, he passed away just recently, and he was brave enough to get on there with me, right? But we did it off a Zoom thing, right? You don't have to be perfect. Look, you welded this on a trailer because
Mhm.
once it was built, you couldn't you didn't have anything to move it on the trailer, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you're never going to be perfect on the first one. You're never going to be the expert right away. But,
No.
as you gain experiences and you keep doing it and you keep doing it, you're going to get better as it goes. And I mean, that's with many things in life. I can ride a motorcycle pretty well. I'm pretty fast at it. I can hit any jump. But there was a time that, I could barely ride a motorcycle. I was falling over on my two wheels. And it takes that, you just got to do it and you just got to keep at it. And then eventually you'll get better.
I think Jordan Peterson says it best. You must be willing to be a fool to be a master, right? To become a master,
Hmm.
right? If you're not willing to step into that place where you just don't know, right? It's okay, right? What I love about your story and why I wanted to highlight it because is that, you had this idea, your dad had this idea.
Hmm.
Now, where you've taken it from there. And what I really want to dive into, and this is something that entrepreneurs need to hear, like the relentless behavior of what you do every day when you show up, right?
Hmm.
Every day you're showing up to make payroll. Every day you're to get material, to figure out your facilities. How can we do these more efficiently, right? You're solving, you know, every day you're trying to solve a better fix for the company, right?
Yeah, we have a goal of like where we want the company to be. And so every day that we show up to work, how are we going to achieve that goal? When I first started out, it was simply how do I weld these things together, juggle my classes, and get them in the hands of the customers? Today, I don't have any hands on. I'm not welding the products now. It's today, how do I get my brand out to the right people, make sure that they know that we exist when they need our product? And just kind of focusing on those efforts. And, as you go through your entrepreneurial journey, what you do on a day-to-day basis will change drastically.
It keeps changing, and I
Hmm.
think that's a great part of the story is just that you know who you become to lead the company, right? I
Hmm.
mean, who you are as a man has changed a lot since that first weld. I mean, that first weld you did, right?
Yeah,
Remember who you were then? First of all, how old were you back then?
I was 18 when I first
18, right?
started it. Yep.
So 18 for
Hmm.
first product sold 18. Now,
Hmm.
through that time, I think about who you've become as a man uh, during that journey.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to grow up fast, right? I had to mature because as the company became legitimate, I'm entering the professional world. A lot of 18-year-olds, younger individuals, we kind of go down a path of just partying, not caring, not having a care in the world, right? But I had to learn responsibility and really kind of grasp those reins and be able to be a player in the professional industry.
Look, and a lot of you entrepreneurs are out there. Look, we make mistakes. I did as an early entrepreneur. I remember when I first started, I did believe that I used to hire people. I would take them out drinking. Like I literally thought if I wanted them to be my friends, right? I
Hmm.
wanted people to like me. And I thought that was a great idea that I would hire somebody and I would like take them out drinking and we would do foolish stuff. And then you go, okay, I wonder why they don't, there's not the respect or or people think of you as a serious person. You went out and did foolish behavior. I just, like who I was then, part of being an entrepreneur for me was kind of proving I wanted to be seen, right? There was some of that lower me that was trying to get seen, uh,
Right.
you know, and maybe that's okay, right? Like that's part of the gift is like you want to be seen for what you're doing, and then you start to grow a little bit more and take another step, and
Hmm.
you start to notice that your thoughts, actions, behavior are causing the company that you're having,
Hmm.
right? So your integrity, right? Let's talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that because look, you're a strong American-made company, right? And your integrity shows through to the products that you build, right? So look, I can tell a lot about a human by the products that they deliver, because it takes that going in as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, it comes down to the culture that you set in your company, really kind of influences how the company works as a whole. And it comes from the leadership and who you are as a person with leading the company. One of the kind of core values that we have in our business is something I learned working for a commercial contractor. And one of their core values was honesty. And I watched them by being honest to their clients when, I mean, plenty of contractors aren't, and the client might never know. But I watched because of their honesty and the reputation that they built with that, they were pleasurable to work with. And that won them work again and again and again. And so I felt like that was a really good value that should be in most businesses because people, the your business is all about the people that you have and the relationships that you make, whether that's with your customers, your employees, or your suppliers, or whoever else it might be that influences your business. And if you're not somebody that those people want to work with or build a good relationship with, then you're going to have struggles. But if you can, have good, honest values, provide good quality work, people want to come back and they want to keep working with you because their day-to-day life, they'd rather work with somebody like that than somebody who's a pain.
Yeah, no, come on. Look, we want to work with those. I truly believe that, especially as Americans, each one help one, right? I
Mhm.
think that once we kind of meet our basic needs, or like we're not in survival mode around here anymore. Most of us have a pretty decent life, right?
Mhm.
Even our worst off here in our country we have some pretty good we have some pretty good support system. Not everybody's perfect. I'm not trying to say everybody's perfect, but each one of us can do better, and when we see someone doing better, we want to support that, right?
Mhm.
There's I always kind of use the analogy when you see a car broken down on the side of the road and you see someone out there pushing the car, everyone wants to jump out and help,
Mhm.
right? But if you're sitting in the car waiting for someone to help, you're wondering why people aren't helping. It's kind of obvious, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, helping yourself,
Yeah,
it inspires others to help you too, because it's like, oh, look, they're trying, right?
yeah,
People don't want
yeah.
to jump in and help people who aren't trying.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
talk about some of the wins and losses as you've gone through different employees, as you've gone through different systems. Let's talk a little bit about that because it takes a lot to grow the company you're on. And those early days of growing the company,
Mhm.
you went through some people, you went through some employees. There were some things that were great, or some things that weren't great.
Yeah, we've had a lot of different moments in the company. We started out part-time and trying to teach people how to weld in the very beginning because I was hiring fellow college students with me. Um, and that was like hard to manage, and you're managing your friends. That's something that's hard to do because trying to keep them accountable.
Yeah.
Uh, that was something that we kind of fell off on. I got lucky. One guy he would overproduce, and then I had another guy that would underproduce. Kind of evened out, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then my focus was something that was kind of like something that in the beginning was an area that needed improvement because I was trying to do the deliveries all myself, right? I was driving these things to the customers. When you're driving these things across the states, it takes up a lot of your time, and then your focus isn't in the right areas. Um, and then when we turned around, so when I had it in college, it was just kind of a side business. I shut it down to finish school and we opened it back up. My dad came on board and we made this a full family business. And some of the wins that we have was by, coming up with a goal of what we want the business to be and then putting in the right people to help us make that happen. And, one of the biggest wins that we got was finding an operations manager that could help run our business. And we didn't hire him because he knew manufacturing and welding and fabrication. We know that, right? We hired him because he understood logistics and how to ship products, which was something that was the biggest failure for me in the beginning. I was losing money, I was losing time. So we brought him in. Now we can ship these to all 50 states. We can get them to islands because he understands that process. And then we teach him how to do the welding and manufacturing part, manage that part of the process. And now we've got a team that is like rock star team. You
Yeah.
know,
No,
you
no, no.
can it.
That's it's awesome, right? Like that's
Yeah.
right. He compensates for the places where you're hurting,
Mhm.
right? Where you don't do well, right? And
Right.
you support him in things that you do well.
Mhm. Yeah, taking the like a problem with your business and trying to turn it into an opportunity, I think is a good way to go about it, right? Because if you find the weakest point that you have and then you make that a strength, well, now you as a whole, the whole company gets a lot stronger.
That's right. That's right. Like if almost as if everything you're going through,
Mm.
if you could look at it as a gift, right? And that's there are the times as business owner, I'm like, I have enough gifts, right? I've had
Mhm.
enough gifts, right? If all the problems are a gift, right? If all of them
Mhm.
are, you look at them as a gift and you go, all right, this is something I'm going to learn, right? So those hours and hours of driving the car to go deliver
Mhm.
it, makes you think about stuff, right? There's maybe
Mhm.
like in that, there's a gift in it, and it's hard to see it when you're when you're driving and you're tired. And you've been doing this, and there's all
Right.
these things you got to get done.
Yeah.
But when you look back, right, you start to notice. All right, now you've got someone who can do that, and they do it well.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and doing it wrong myself the first time really gave me a lot of good perspective, and how to improve it and how to do it right the next time, the next iteration. Um, I think it goes back to what we started off the conversation with. It's like you just got to start doing it, and you'll find the ways that the areas that you need to improve are the things that you need to figure out to make it work.
Right. I mean, like each thing you go through, there's like a step that you learn. You
Yeah.
know, I left the office yesterday really upset. Just some things didn't go. First of all, long day. It was like a successful day. We new
Hmm.
client, all kinds of new stuff. End of the day with just some stuff that I was tired, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes when I'm tired, I'm not my best me, right? And
Right.
I don't know. I was kind of grumpy with somebody, and like as a leader, I don't like to be grumpy. I like to be a little bit more reverent than aggressive.
Hmm.
And sometimes I feel like I could shut things down with that behavior. But what was funny about it was I woke up this morning and I could go, all right, truth is, I want to be a better leader, right?
Hmm.
How could I have handled yesterday's situation in a
Hmm.
different way, right? If I look at it and go, okay, there was a gift in, um, maybe I just got too close to the fire. And by the way, I should have probably taken a moment of pause, right? So you
Hmm.
start to learn some things like, all right, taking a deep breath is okay, right? I don't
Hmm.
have to be on all the time. And maybe, so I think all that stuff, when you go through it, if you have the capacity to look at it and go, all right, how am I accountable for my behavior
Right.
and the wins and falls of our company? And I take it on, not blaming somebody else, then I can work on it, right? There's some gift you get to
Hmm.
have to where you get to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's important to try to focus on the solutions to the problems that you have. And being a good leader is, trying to work through those problems, not necessarily like trying to find the person to blame. It's sometimes it's easy just to take the blame yourself, whether it was your fault or not, and just try to move on through the issue, and
Yeah.
um, it's
I,
very
I,
important.
sometimes I think that great leadership is about, you know, bringing all this, managers and they have a book. They go to a manual and go, all right,
Hmm.
when this happens, do this, right? They
Right.
have kind of a sequencing. But as a great leader, I think sometimes my job is to go look at um, my job is to have access to all the ideas in the world. And the more I'm open to other ideas, right, and
Hmm.
to bring them, because no one ever walks in our office as an entrepreneur. No one ever walks in and goes, "Hey, boss, we just made an extra $100,000 on that deal, and oh, this went perfect, and oh, look, everybody's dancing. They're all out there singing hallelujah." No, it's usually you walk in, things on fire, something's wrong,
Hmm.
everything just melted. I don't know what things break down, and then you got to come in and find a solution for them.
Yep.
And I think great leadership allows us to have the more open we are to more solutions,
Hmm.
right? So we don't have this narrow mind. The more we have this opening to be able to take all the solutions of the world, the billions and billions of ideas that are out in the world, and bring it to that scenario, I think the better opportunities we have for our companies when we do that.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing I think about being in a leadership position too, is you don't have that book that tells you what to do. You don't got the steps. You go into any business, even if they're in the same industry, they're going to do things differently. Construction, a building's built relatively the same way. It's same materials, goes up in the same sequence, ground up to the roof. But any construction company that you go into, they're going to have a different process about how they go about it. And you bid out a job, same job, they're going to do it all a different way.
There's humans involved, and when
Yep.
humans are involved, right, every single one of those ants that we got to work with shows up with a different, just a different experience for us, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's.
I want to shift over because I think one of the things you guys do, you guys have a lean manufacturing
Mhm.
way of looking at your business. Let's talk a little about that. How did you get into lean? First of all, talk to the audience about what lean is, and then how did you start to implement that?
Yeah. So lean manufacturing, it's a kind of a set of principles. I want to give credit to Toyota. I don't know if they're the ones that developed it, but they're one of the ones that are most known for it at the very least. And lean manufacturing is what it sounds like. You're trying to identify ways to cut down waste and unnecessary parts of the process. And so some of the main principles with it is like identifying waste, doing quality control as you're going along. That way you don't have to go back and undo things and redo them. And trying to incentivize your employees to find ways to make the process more efficient because your employees have a hands-on, eyes on the process. You as a leader probably don't, and if you do, it was probably a long time ago when the process was different. Um, and then something else is like trying to keep a low amount of inventory or just the right amount of inventory of the right stuff when you need it. And so it's all about timing and this really trying to make this process efficient. And so I learned about lean management principles when I was going to college because I went for construction management. And if you're on a tight construction site, you have a lot of materials to bring in, but not a lot of places to put them. So they teach you how to make that process efficient and kind of incorporate that there. When I made the switch to manufacturing, um, that's what it was like made for. And so I wanted to implement that into the business. We start identifying, okay, how can we minimize the amount of steel that's being wasted on each product? Or if there is waste, can we turn those into other products? Getting a culture going with the employees, if you guys see a way that we can do it better, tell us, and it was a lot of push at the beginning, but you start incentivizing them with something like that. Like if you guys come up with something that makes the process better, we're going to, get you a lunch or do some type of celebration, then you start seeing some of those problems arise, and then you can they'll even provide suggestions too on how to make them better. And the other thing is trying to keep a fluid process going. So something that we identified, and you have to have the tools in place to kind of identify this. We put in software so we can track this and have good data points so we can make the right decisions. But what process is taking up most of the time, and where are your bottlenecks at, and trying to eliminate those bottlenecks. So 80% of our process for building the product is welding. So that means we need to have welders welding constantly. We should not have welders painting or cutting or running a forklift or doing anything else, right? So instead of hiring another welder, well, maybe we should hire employees to support the welders so that they can just keep it moving forward, right? And just identifying things like that and having data really helps make those types of decisions, and tracking the process. And you can even kind of take some of those lean principles to your management too. Like, are there things that your managers that they're doing that is inefficient and wasting time in their day where they can help improve the process? And there's a lot of opportunity with software to automate a lot of these menial tasks that we have to repetitively do every day, especially with the as AI arises. It's crazy. You can apply artificial intelligence into even a simple operation like mine, where we're making very simple products.
Yeah, look, it's coming. All that's going to be part of it. Yeah. So how are you implementing AI?
So we're using it to track like our lead sources, right? So we try to mark them with tags. We ask them on the phone, "Hey, where'd you hear about us?" Right? So we put those tags in there. And then we have analyze the different tags from the different sources, because some of them buy on our e-commerce store. They don't talk to us. We try to use that to identify, what marketing is working right. That's one of the ways that we're utilizing it. We also utilize it to just kind of analyze a large amount of data, because at the end of every year, I'll go through and get a spreadsheet with, 2,500, 3,000 line items about how much time it took on each job to do each process, and throwing that in there and seeing if it can recognize any patterns and give me some types of insights. And it's not going to do the job for me, but it can at least point me in the right direction of where I should look.
I think the thing that people don't realize is the value of the data that you're collecting, right? If I just got done doing a podcast with the Canadian Lumber Association, and one of the cool things that they were talking about is from the second a tree is literally cut down in the forest, as it goes from there to the mill, tracking the time it takes, from the time they mark the tree, time to cut it down, from there to the mill, from the mill, through the kilns, all the way to the distribution points. tracking and managing and putting taggable chips in each product
Hmm.
and be able to watch it through there. And now, their belief is really that as AI gets smarter and smarter and designed in AI,
Hmm.
without that digital process identified well, right?
Hmm.
AI won't be able to pick the product, right? On job sites in the future, you'll see job sites that go, we'll be done a 15-minute increments or faster on every schedule.
Hmm.
And today, that just would blow. I mean, to try to do a schedule in 15-minute increments on a regular construction site today,
Hmm.
literally will make people's heads squish, pop like a zit.
Well,
Um,
and then it becomes too hard to manage that schedule too.
well, just
If you have a
change it.
change,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
just too much work, too granular for a human to be able to
yeah.
manage.
And
Hmm.
and but AI can, right, and that's really
Right.
where that's the gift of where we're going, and people aren't seeing, there's fear that kicks in. And I'm like,
Hmm.
listen, folks, you're we beat our asses, we beat ourselves to death in this business. We work so hard to, and people, I call it hide the banana. You think that people don't realize you have to make a profit on this? You have to make a profit. And what the whole purpose here is to really start to identify your schedules and clearly communicate to
Hmm.
each other. And the more that we can do that with each other, so that each, when someone shows up, they can get, real efficient at doing their job and be able to
Hmm.
get in and communicate that work's done. So the next guy can get in and do their
Hmm.
job. That was really where our profitability will go up,
Hmm.
right? Efficiency will go up,
Yep.
uh, but it's going to take some converting. Having an employee leave my shop to go to a job site and not know what they do all day. It's not Big Brother watching. It's trying to create efficiency so that, one, the owner of the company knows the work that they bid on was correct, right?
Hmm.
The project needs to know where they are on a schedule. But
Hmm.
imagine a day when at the end of every shift, we're paying that subcontractor in the moment. Just like an Uber driver gets paid at the end of every ride, right?
Hmm.
The days of lean releases and pay application, all that stuff, so damn inefficient. But we do it because we have to go. Most people put a pay application in. Someone's got to go
Hmm.
verify the work's done. All of
Right.
that's done by some human that goes, they're, I don't know, 30%, ish done, right? And it's a guess. But imagine a future where it'll be actual.
Yeah, if you can speed up the movement of cash, it definitely would help. Because I mean, that's the whole reason that's the hardest part of running a business is trying to maintain a positive cash flow, especially in construction. I mean, subcontractors have it the hardest because you got to wait till you usually have a paid when paid clause,
That's right.
and you got to wait till the general contractor gets paid after he submits his payment application, and then when he gets paid, he's going to take 5 to 10 days because it helps his cash flows. Before that hits your account, and you're the subcontractor, you're floating the materials usually.
That's right.
it's it's a difficult game, and all businesses have to figure out how are we going to effectively be ahead of our cash, because if it doesn't matter if you get a $10 million job if you don't have the money to or don't have positive cash flows through it, you're not going to make a dollar.
Well, and it becomes inefficient for everybody, right? It's
Hmm.
it's not just you, it's the other subs that are on that job site. And unfortunately, that's where the business went to. The bid process is such a nonsensical item. It's all
Hmm.
based on fear and not trusting each other.
Hmm.
And our we go to bid for a project. If let's say it's I don't know, you call it a restaurant A, right? ABC restaurant, and it's a ground up building. Let's say that
Hmm.
we have 5 or 6 general contractors bidding it. Call it,
Hmm.
50 line items that are on there. For us, we get all 50 line items. We literally bid 3 subs per line item, right?
Hmm.
Say it costs each of our subs $1,000 per line item to bid that
Hmm.
project. Just in our subs is $150,000.
Hmm.
Do it times 5 contractors. That's $750,000, and no one won the job yet, right? And
Right.
right, and that's before the job even started. And now you're
Hmm.
thinking, all right, how inefficient is that in the business? When we start looking at where the business is going to go in the future, that right there is one process that needs to go away. It's just so inefficient, so costly to
Hmm.
the industry. Imagine a future where in design you'll be able to know the cost, the labor, and the people all in the same moment. And that's what AI is going to give us, is that ability.
Yep. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really liked with my business is, at the beginning it was they call us, get a quote, okay, let me work it up, let me calculate the materials, try to figure out how much this thing's going to cost and how much I'm going to charge you. Then there was a point when I was like, let's just collect this data. We can identify what the average time it takes to make each product is, and then we can price that for our customers so they know. So then we started selling them e-commerce. Now we don't have to do the quoting. We do it once a year just to make sure that we're with any price fluctuations that we're good. But you can just go on the website and buy it. See what's in stock. We stock the most popular items. That way people can just have it ready to go. And um, it it really kind of adds a lot of value for the customers because there's now we're not wasting time estimating this because then I have to add that cost in there.
That's right.
Now I just do it once.
Just and as that gets smarter and
Hmm.
smarter and smarter, being able to have that, and then as you start to do all the other stuff you're doing with marketing, today even our marketing campaigns are so inefficient,
Hmm.
right? Today, in order to sell, to sell your equipment, you have to market to 100% of the marketplace. But
Hmm.
as we get smarter at looking at segments of the market, and going, all right, where are your core people, right? And as you
Yep.
start to learn what equipment they have, what kind of projects they're working on, how old
Hmm.
the current equipment is, starting to know this is, start to get smarter at the client acquisition. I think AI is going to bring that to us in a much, much smarter way, where you
Yeah.
can get in front of more customers that need your product quicker. As that gets smarter. Have you started to really break through there yet?
I think the hardest part with the marketing side of it is, trying to have the data, right? Because, it's people don't want to be tracked, but then at the same time, they want to be given ads that are relative to them. And trying to get those data points is very hard. We've gotten to the point where, we do have a core demographic of people that we know that we need to target, right? And we can go after people that own civil construction companies. That's the simplest place to start. We know that they probably have a need for our product. Maybe not now, but they do in the future. But then, we use a lot of Google ads and relying on people searching for our stuff to make sure that we're showing up in front of them. And, you're right. There's a lot of inefficiencies with marketing. I mean, just trying to like manage Google ad campaigns. If any of your listeners have never touched that before, I recommend that you hire somebody else out that is an expert in that because there is so much data to go through to try to make them function efficiently so that they're showing up and you're not blowing your budget.
Each of those are great learning lessons. Like an athlete needs a great coach. So
Hmm.
does the entrepreneur. And no one ever said to me when I was going to become an entrepreneur. No one said when I want to start a construction management company. No one ever said that I was going to have to be an HR expert.
Hmm.
Right. No one said I had to be a marketing expert, how to start a marketing company. No one had told me how to be an AI. Today, compared to what my grandfather had to run, I have 7 or 8 different businesses inside of my business to run. And,
Right.
the fact that we all think that we're supposed to be omnipotent and have all knowing about all of these is the crazy part.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much to learn. I mean, I spend a lot of my time now trying to tie softwares together and learn how to be a software developer. I went to school for construction management. I have a manufacturing company. I spent a lot of time developing software. That was never where I thought I would be.
Yeah. No, it's just funny how those iterations of you come into play. But by the way,
Hmm.
all those, just imagine all that serves us a little bit, right? So everything that you go through is making your company smarter, making you smarter.
Yep.
It's just it's a gift. For those entrepreneurs that are out there, look, I really want you to really speak to, what you're working on, where you see yourself going. I want them to know, look, even though that it's hard work,
Hmm.
right? Here, is it worth it?
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
You get to a point where it's like, okay, this is starting to be fun. It's starting to pay off. It's starting to be a little bit easier to manage, and I'm not so stressed out. And then you'll be able to like the employees that you have, you'll be able to take care of them better, and you start feeling good about that because it's like I'm supporting these guys. I'm making sure that they have a good life, and people like working for me. But there's a grind in the beginning, and you got to push through it. Rewards are there for people who put in the hard work for the most part. Some people get lucky, but majority of people are going to have to put in the work to get where they want to be.
I don't know many lucky people. Maybe some of those guys that your parent gave you something, but not as far as I'm concerned. I think that every entrepreneur I know that's been successful gets up every day and they grind,
Hmm.
and that relentless behavior that you are. that passion for taking care of your humans, that, not the people that you're in charge of, but the people that are in your charge,
Mhm.
right? Where you take care of them, right?
Mhm.
And I can see that in the products that you make. You're a great American entrepreneur.
Mhm.
I just so much enjoyed having you on the show. I want to make sure that everybody gets to go check out Bear Iron Works and gets to you. If people want to get to you and talk to you some more, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, they can go visit our website, beariron.com. You can call the number on there. If I don't pick up, you can ask for me. We'll get you transferred over. Um, and you can check out all of our product lines and the things that we offer to the construction industry. If you guys have any, want to talk to me about anything just business in general, I'm happy to have a conversation. Um, and
Right.
yeah, we want to offer your guests or your listeners a discount if they are in the need for any of our
Yeah.
products, and you can use code Future Factory to get 5% off your entire order.
Nice,
Mhm.
nice, nice. I guess, well, awesome. We'll get that out there. Listen, let's make sure we get that out to all of our site work contractors that are on our podcast. Make sure they know they got a 5% discount.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for that. That's awesome. We'll make sure we put that down in the comments down below. How to get a hold of Roggen, how to get to their company website and all that. So,
Mhm.
thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was a great conversation that we had, and I appreciate being on here.
Thank you very much. Audience members, last week it was amazing. We broke 65,000 subscribers. I am so damn happy and proud of all of us for the work that's been taken to get this done. But we noticed that a lot of you guys made to the end of the podcast, but weren't subscribers last week. If you could take a second and like and subscribe, it means the world to Alyssa and Joe and all the people in the background who put hard work to make this podcast happen. And it gets us great guests like Roggen and be able to bring them on and tell their stories. So if you could do that right now for us, it'd be great. I'd be grateful for that. And as always, thanks for listening.